Whatever the odds are stacked against you, you've got it. You can overcome because you've overcome before. Good morning and welcome to the morning show. We're officially your second alarm and we're reaching you live, of course, from our global headquarters in Lagos. I am Bukola Koka and as usual, I'm blessed amongst men.
Absolutely,
Jeffrey.
She caught us unawares. Like, I was like, what's going on here? Well,
did you say we're your second alarm?
The second alarm, I had to listen to everything she said. Well, welcome to the morning brief right here on Nigeria's lead station. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. It's going to be an amazing, amazing, amazing show. And we're going to have as much fun like we always have, as much as possible. Kayode, how was your night?
I'm still trying to get over the second alarm part. I think I like that, really. We're the good alarm. The alarm that wakes you up and you're happy about it. Yeah. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Welcome to the show. We're coming to you live from Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Guys, I have a question for you. Just a very short question. When is the right time to take out your Christmas decorations? Is there a right time?
I think Bukola will be in a better
naturally,
position.
you want me to answer that question?
Yeah. You should answer that question.
I've never been high on Christmas trees because Christmas for me is regardless of the ornaments and the other elements. It's just the reason for the season, you know. But sometimes you can't forget the Christmas trees in your living room for a long time.
February, you still have a Christmas decoration.
I've had Christmas trees in my living room up until June.
What?
Okay, maybe Christmas, maybe just keep it all the way till Valentine's Day. Maybe you can stretch it that far.
So it can serve as Valentine's decoration.
Let me even make it, let me add another question. Someone said, when should we stop saying Happy New Year?
Good question.
Good question. So when should
I'm actually asking.
Well, I think up until you've exhausted your list of those you're just seeing for the new year. Because if I'm just seeing you in the new year in March, you're still Happy New Year.
Because we have this thing we do in Nigeria. You call someone you've not spoken to for a long time, you call the person in September, and first says, Happy New Year. Or you've not spoken to the person for years, say, Happy New Year's, you know. So I guess maybe that works. But hey, what do you think, taking out those Christmas decorations? I know we were light this past Christmas because of course, the economic challenges, but I still see people with their Christmas lights. When are you taking it out? But that's by the way. What do we have for you today?
Well, there's so much that you'll be commenting on, you know, on the program today. But as we start off, did you know that there's an interconnect fee that telecom subscribers pay each other for calls terminating on their own network? Well, the Nigerian Commission has slammed a restriction on Globacom for owing MTN 6 billion naira. So you Globacom subscribers, in about 10 days when it will be effective, you may not be able to call MTN. But of course, inbound calls from other networks to Globacom will go through. So how will that affect you? We have all of the experts coming on the program today, you know, to help us understand this better. We understand that it's not the first time anyway, guys.
Absolutely. More like you can come into my house, I can come into your house kind of situation.
I like that.
Yeah, so that is actually the layman's interpretation of what's going on. So, hey, if you're a Globacom subscriber, she's simply saying to you, well, let's see how that plays out eventually. So we'll explore this conversation, but that's not the only conversation we'll be exploring. We're going to talk about inflation. How bad is it for you? How much of your pocket? How deep is your pocket right now? Because you have to, you've been doing some savings, but right now you need to go touch that saving just to survive, just to get by. Inflation numbers are high, 28.2 as at the last count. December is not out. Very soon we're going to see all of the elements being released. I think the 15th of January we'll find out what it is in terms of numbers for December 2023. How bad is it that the situation in your pocket for transportation, for food, and all of the elements that inflation affects? But we're going to have the people who are in the know in terms of the suppliers and some of the products we enjoy, like staple foods and all of that. So a baker and a farmer will be joining us on the program to explore how inflation is affecting MSMEs as well as the common man in Nigeria.
Absolutely. But that's not all we have for you on the show today. Well, we'll have weather, of course. We always speak on weather, what to expect, but also that recent trend. Deborah Loveth Olaki, better known as Mummyzee. Yes, you have seen that. I bet you have. Well, she's still enjoying goodwill. She and her husband, they've been enjoying goodwill from Nigerians after disclosing that she wakes up at 4:50 a.m. daily to prepare food for her husband. But before the goodwill came the criticism. In fact, with the goodwill, criticism, with a lot of people frowning on her post for being a product of insecurity. So what's the place of feminism in all of this? We'll be navigating through the views that shaped this conversation. So stay with us right here on The Morning Brief.
Speaking of which, it's a robust lineup that we have for you from what you've heard so far, and you don't want to miss any aspect of the conversation. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Morning Brief. Of course, we're reaching you live right here from Channel Television's headquarters in Lagos. And it's time to take you through the headlines this morning. And as we start off, these are certainly not the best of times for the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu. Nonetheless, she made a prompt appearance at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission following the invitation by the Anti-Graft Agency over alleged 585 million naira fraud in her ministry. According to a reliable source, Dr. Edu arrived at the EFCC headquarters on Tuesday at 11 a.m. accompanied by her aides and lawyer. She was suspended on Monday by President Bola Tinubu over the alleged payment of 585 million naira humanitarian funds meant for payment of grants to vulnerable groups in Akwa Ibom, Lagos, Cross River and Ogun States into a private account. The 37-year-old's predicament took a turn for the worse when the Accountant General of the Federation, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Madeyin, confirmed that despite receiving the payment requests from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, she did not act on it. Edu is the first minister to be suspended from office since members of the Federal Executive Council were sworn in August last year. An air of uncertainty may still hang at the government house in Plateau State as the Supreme Court on Tuesday reserved judgment on an appeal filed by Governor Caleb Mutfwang seeking the affirmation of his election, which was nullified by the Court of Appeal in November last year. A 5-member panel led by Justice John Okoro, upon hearing the argument from parties in the matter, stated that a date for a judgment will be communicated to the parties on or before January the 16th, when the matter will lapse. The Apex Court also reserved judgment in the Delta governorship election appeal challenging the victory of Governor Sheriff Oborewori.
It is day 2 in the series of governorship appeals here at the Supreme Court. Plateau and Delta states are next on the cause list to be heard. The Plateau governorship case is probably one of the most anticipated on the list of governorship appeals, and the state governor is present in the full courtroom to witness the proceedings. Governor Caleb Mutfwang is praying the Supreme Court to dismiss the Court of Appeal decision of 19th November 2023, which voided his election on grounds of non-qualification. The appellate court had, in a unanimous decision, held that the Plateau State PDP, not having a structure, made its Congress invalid, with Mutfwang's nomination being an offshoot of the exercise, making him a casualty, and the APC governorship candidate emerging winner. Counsel to the Governor Kanu Agabi insists that the appeal court departed from judgment precedents of the Supreme Court, which states that matters on nomination is a pre-election issue. one that it lacks jurisdiction to determine. Agabi also faults the decision of the appeal court to declare the APC governorship candidate a winner of the March 18 polls, which he had deemed invalid and null and void in his petition at the tribunal, which affirmed the election of Muftwang.
There's nothing like lack of structure. And then also you'll also find that the Congress they said never held is actually a subject matter that no court can deal with. You also had it in court, that it is not for any court to determine whether that Congress was valid or invalid. You know, the judgment has not come, and we're waiting to hear what the decision will be.
The issue before that we brought before this court is whether there was compliance with the order of the Court of Appeal of 28th of October 2022 that says that you must go and comply with the order, and your failure to comply with the order, then you cannot partake in any election.
Back in the courtroom, the 5-member panel led by Justice John Okoro reserved judgment on the appeals filed by the Labour Party, the All Progressives Congress, and the Social Democratic Party in Delta State. The parties are all contesting the victory of Governor Sheriff Oborevori, asking that the verdicts of the lower courts be upturned.
We had more than enough time to plead our case, because in the appellate courts, your case is made out not so much by what you say in court on the day of hearing, but more by the arguments contained in your brief of argument. And we filed this brief of argument very comprehensive, very detailed, very exhaustive, and all-encompassing.
These indigents of Plateau and Delta State who have converged on the Supreme Court are hopeful that the verdicts of the Supreme Court will swing in the favor of their preferred candidates.
It's the first plenary of 2024 and the 90th legislative day at the makeshift River State House of Assembly in the premises of the Assembly Quarters, Port Harcourt. The atmosphere is
And to politics now. It appears the Cold War between the legislature and the executive arms of government in River State still persists, as Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Martin Amewule, has complained that the state governor, Siminalayi Fubara, is yet to present both the medium-term expenditure framework and the 2024 appropriations bill to the House. He made this known during the first plenary of the Assembly in 2024, even as two bills scaled first reading on the floor of the House. Our correspondent, Charles Oporum, reports.
It's the first plenary of 2024 and the 90th legislative day at the makeshift River State House of Assembly in the premises of the Assembly Quarters, Port Harcourt. The atmosphere is convivial as members are in a jovial mood. Soon the Speaker walks in and the business of the day begins. There are 3 items for consideration, and among them are 2 bills and an expected report from the Audit Committee, who plead for more time.
Mr. Speaker, a bill for a law to amend the River State Traditional Rulers Law number 4 of 2015 and for other matters connected thereto. Mr. Speaker, this bill has 3 clauses, Mr. Speaker, when passed into law.
A bill for a law to repeal the River State Advertisements and Use of State-Owned Properties Prohibition Law number 7 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, this bill have 2 clauses.
Let me...
Speaking, however, the Speaker complains that the state governor has neither presented the medium-term expenditure framework nor the 2024 appropriations bill to the House.
The 2024 appropriation bill is yet to get to this August Assembly. As it stands today, we have not received the medium-term expenditure framework. We have not received the appropriation bill for 2024. It means the state at the moment is operating without a budget approved by this August Assembly in line with the 1999 Constitution as altered.
Speaking to the pressman, however, the member representing Asari Toru, Honorable Enemi George, explains the idea behind both bills and denies that they are targeted at weakening the governor's power.
The House is not taking away the power of the governor to do anything. We're only strengthening democratic institutions. If we've made laws to strengthen local government institutions, we're also making laws to strengthen traditional institutions so that traditional rulers can independently perform their functions without fear or intimidation. We need them to be more active in governance. We need them to be more active in the democratic space.
The last has definitely not been heard in the Rivers political imbroglio. Many would be waiting to see the governor's reaction to the latest move by the 26 legislators who are believed to be loyal to the FCT minister. Charles Oporum, Channels Television News.
Now, is it business as usual or what? Well, you decide. As President Bola Tinubu has slashed by 60% all federal government delegations for both foreign and local trips. The special advisor on media and publicity to the president, Ajuri Ngilale, while addressing a press briefing at the State House, said the president is determined to bring total sanity and prudence to the management of government funds.
Four members of their staff, appointees and the like, will be allowed to travel with a minister on an official trip. For heads of agency, that will be limited to 2 members of staff allowed to travel on an official trip. On international trips, the president has directed that no more than 20 individuals be allowed to travel with him. That number will be cut down to 5 in the case of the First Lady. 20 for the President, 5 for the First Lady. Additionally, the number in the entourage on official international trips for the Vice President will be cut to 5. You will find that the numbers on international trips are less than those allowed on domestic trips. This is because international trips are far more expensive across the board, and the President is determined to bring total sanity and prudence to the management of the Commonwealth of our people. The President is insistent that the notion of government wastage, the notion of recurrent expenditure being in excess, the notion that government officials will be allowed to conduct their affairs in a way that is different from what we are asking of Nigerian citizens with respect to prudence and cost management. Those days are over.
Well, the more you search and the less you find from ATM dispensing machines. I'm talking about cash now, except you buy from POS operators. But the Apex Bank says broad money supply, also known as M3, increased year-on-year by 36% to 67 trillion naira as at December last year, and it's up from 49.3 trillion naira recorded in September 2022. According to Nigeria's central bank's third quarter 2023 economic report, the currency in circulation moved by 64.3% as at September 2023 from 1.68 trillion naira in March 2023, following the Supreme Court order that the old 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira old notes remain legal tender. According to the Apex Bank, efficiencies in financial intermediation also led to a 3.4% increase in broad money supply during the period from 3.3% in December 2022. CBN notes that on the asset side, domestic claims were the sole driver of growth in M3 with a contribution of 51% points in the review period. And foreign news now. Gunmen storm Ecuador TV station during live broadcast. Yes, it sounded like something from the movies, but it played out in real life as a group of armed men broke into a live television studio in Ecuador and threatened staff, footage has revealed. A live broadcast by station TC in the city of Guayaquil was interrupted on Tuesday by the gang members who were wearing hoods and carrying guns. Staff were forced to lay flat on the floor before the live feed cut out. A 60-day state of emergency began in Ecuador on Monday after a convicted gang leader vanished from his prison cell. The hooded men were seen leaving the TC studios, with police seen entering the set about 30 minutes after the gunmen first appeared. And now to sports. It's hours to the all-important AFCON qualifiers. Not hours now, about 3 days. And it's a cheery countdown as the Super Eagles of Nigeria touch down in Lagos for a send-forth dinner ahead of the AFCON, which begins the weekend, despite the result of their last warm-up game. The Super Eagles received a very warm reception from the Nigerian Football Supporters Club, who rolled out their drums to welcome the team. Coach Ose Pesero and his team are expected to fly to Abidjan, the capital city of the host country, Côte d'Ivoire, today. And they were also hosted to a reception dinner by the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu.
We trust our Super Eagles to make it happen, as it is. Captain of the Super Eagles right now, so please, with a warm applause, let's welcome Ahmed.
And on the downside, injured Super Eagles and Bayern Leverkusen forward Victor Boniface is to undergo surgery in the coming days and is expected to be out of action until early April. Bayern Leverkusen confirmed that their top striker and Super Eagles forward Boniface will undergo surgery in the coming days owing to injury that he sustained in the team's training camp in Abu Dhabi. The striker is now expected to be out of action until early April. Boniface has netted 10 goals for his club in the Bundesliga this season. And that's it on the top stories for you this morning. Jeffrey and Kayode, injury or not, the reception that the governor of Lagos State hosted for the Super Eagles is bound to be a morale booster, I guess, for the team. Wouldn't it be?
Well, the saying is, let's do it again for the Super Eagles. That's what, in fact, the NFL has this particular jersey now put out for people to purchase. Let's do it again is what's on it. So can we do it again? That is the big question. But I think that's one of the softer sides of the stories making the rounds, because I think Nigerians are very particular about politics and governance. Naturally, yeah, we can take a break and switch to politics. But one thing that stood out for me from those stories is the slashing of delegations on trips for MDAs, the president, vice president, and the wife of the president. I know a lot of Nigerians are taking it with a pinch of salt. Naturally, we know that trust is really low when it comes to governance, the people and governance. And a lot of people are saying, okay, yes, we'll see the delegation for the next trip. And that is when we'll know if you really mean what you say, not just saying these things. And I think it's important for the government to follow through with all of these things and ensure that they are transparent as well. Nigerians don't want audio promise, as it's been said. So, hey, do you believe the federal government on this one? Would you be keeping your eyes on those delegations in the coming days? Tweet at us, #CTV Morning Brief. Let's know what you think about the top stories, guys.
Jeffrey, what's up for you?
Apparently, just to take it from where Kayode stopped, I don't know where we can be checking the numbers traveling with the president or the vice president. So wherever it is that we usually get those numbers, now our eyes are open, we're going to see, because as he said, the trust deficit is quite high in the country.
High? So, well, I get it. Sarcasm.
Yes. Yeah. So they'll say, is this just for the optics, or the government is trying to cut costs as much as possible at the end of the day? So whenever we see the president travel going forward, we'd like to see the names, or where we can, find those names, because that's the only way Nigerians will eventually believe. But moving on to other stories, of course, Rivers State, the power play has started again. It comes in episodes, and we've always said here that resolution is a very technical resolution. So we're going to see how that plays out eventually. So The governor has actually presented a budget to a four-man house led by Edison Ehie, who has actually left the house, 800 billion naira. That's why it's called the theater of the absurd. At the end of the exercise, everybody was shouting, oh, those were the people that were available to be presented with a budget. Now, with the reconciliation that has happened, these gentlemen are saying, we haven't seen medium-term anything, we haven't seen the budget. So it's yet to be seen whether the governor will, based on that resolution, say, I will go back to the House and represent a budget I have actually signed into law. Because right now, as far as he is concerned, the appropriation bill is an act now, and it's a law. So we're going to see how this plays out. Rivers is of interest, and we keep telling you this is a series of episodes that will be coming forth back and forth, and as we'll just continue to watch that space and see how it plays out eventually, guys.
Jeffrey and Kadi, it appears we're on the same page this morning, particularly as it has to do with that report about the president cutting down foreign delegations by 60%. And if we could just walk down memory lane a bit, down to the former administration led by former President Muhammadu Buhari, there was, the beginning of the conversation on cutting the cost of governance. And, the administration was quite optimistic about reduction in the number of ministries. At that time, what was being proposed was 19 ministries and the merger of ministries. And there was also a time when, there was a proposition about the president and the vice reducing their remuneration. But that never saw the light of day. And of course, we know the number of ministries that we eventually had at the end of the day. So this is only a drop in the ocean, but it has definitely opened the conversation on cutting the cost of governance. But reducing the number of foreign delegation by 60%, how far does it go? What does it amount to if the administration keeps on insisting that Nigerians should, tighten their belts, make sacrifices? How much sacrifice is government making, not just at the executive arm of government, but the legislative arm of government? So again, Mr. President, is a drop in the ocean.
Just to add that people are now saying, how about governors as well? We need to see all of this trickle down. Well, down in that sense, federal, states, even though what it ought to be is ensure that all of these subnationals, of course, have their own sort of autonomy to a large extent. So it's not federal government up there and states are down. Let everybody have their powers, as it were. But the point is, state governors should also follow in that path. But when you talked about the previous government, I recall that people dug up reports about the previous government. Buhari also announced some sort of slash in ESTA codes, allowances, and the rest. To what extent did we really see that impact our spending positively is an obvious question, and I think it has an obvious answer.
I like that angle of the states, because most of the time, as Nigerians, we just focus on the federal government. They are under scrutiny all the time. But if you know what happens in the state, it can't be desired at all, which is why that call is quite important. Look at the state. Most of the state, the legislature is an appendage of the executive, which is why you see what happens in places maybe like River State and other places. Because if they were independent, if the governor is fighting with his predecessor, of what business is that to the legislature? So when you see two people fighting or disagreeing, even Benue State, for instance, the SGF, people loyal to the SGF, George Akome and the governor, Hyacinth Dalia, that has trickled down to even the National Assembly, because a caucus of the APC in the National Assembly, majority of them are loyal to the SGF, and then the other one, this is National Assembly. So the independence, first, the independence of the legislature has to be, we need to keep talking about it. You are not an appendage of the executive. You're actually there for checks and balance. You have three roles: representation, legislation, and oversight. Those are your responsibility. We're not saying don't have cordial relationship. We're not saying fight all the time. We're saying that when the executive looks at your face, they should be cautious in doing whatever they're doing at the end of this. So the governors themselves, we also want to see, just like our president has done, the governors need to also do the same thing. Cut costs. The recklessness at subnational level is not to be desired. If we bring those numbers, and I've done a bit of research, to even think that if Nigerian states were enterprises, for instance, they were business entities, The truth is that without fact, most of these states will not be viable. They'll go belly up, they'll become bankrupt. Some states, like, let me not mention, let them not say I'm targeting any state, but some states are so dependent on,
I guess.
This is data. Some states are as much as 90% dependent on fact. That also brings the argument of restructuring, whether, and all of that. But if I'm a governor...
Even oil-producing states, according to the State of State report by budget.
Yeah, oil producing. So if I'm a governor and my state is 90% dependent or 60% dependent or 75% dependent on fact, I need to be innovative. What if something goes wrong? I can't share money, which is why we talk about this thing. So, Kayode, it's a good point to raise. Not just federal government all the time. We need to talk about the state
And you know,
government.
Jeffrey, we could expand the conversation as far as you know, accountability and cutting the cost of government at a subnational level is concerned. We could also look at transparency in the disbursement and management of funds. Making local governments work is critical to the success of our democratic institutions. You know, but what exactly is happening at that level? State governors holding on tightly to the joint account for which they manage the funds of local government. So
don't even go there.
There you go.
Please go there. This is the year we go everywhere. But guys, recall that one of the biggest stories that came out late yesterday from the Chief of Army Staff is the arrest of that soldier. A lot of people must have seen the video. A soldier who slammed Governor Sanwo-Olu for arresting his colleague and some others who were riding on a motorcycle opposite moving traffic. And we recall that was the Lagos Badagry Expressway. Was it a week ago or so? I think it was actually last week.
About a week ago, we took that story.
Yes, it was a big story. So a soldier did a video, slammed the governor, and a lot of people were shocked. Like, is this real? Is this a real soldier? But the Chief of Army Staff says the soldier has been arrested. So that's one story that also, of course, made the rounds yesterday.
Yes, and indeed, we're going to start off with our first bit of conversation for the day. Don't forget, you can tweet at us, you can send your posts on X, you know, on all our conversations. Either it's the arrest of the man who slammed the governor or any of the stories that has resonated with you this morning. So when we come back, we'll begin with the first leg of our conversation. Stay with the Morning Brief. We'll be right back. Yes, thank you for staying tuned to the program. And as we start off with our first leg of a conversation, of course, just a quick reminder, we're looking at that approval by the NCC for restriction of calls from Glo to MTN due to indebtedness of Glo to the tune of 6 billion naira to MTN of what we know as Interconnect fees. We'll find out more about what Interconnect fees are this morning. But first of all, let's take a closer look at that statement by the Nigeria Communications Commission. And this is it. The Nigeria Communications Commission hereby notifies the public and subscribers of Globacom Limited that approval has been granted for the partial disconnection of Globacom from MTN Nigeria Communications PLC due to non-settlement of interconnect charges. Globacom was notified of the application made by MTN and was given opportunity to comment and state its case. The Commission, having examined the application and circumstances surrounding the indebtedness, determined that Globacom does not have sufficient or justifiable reason for non-payment of the interconnect charges. All subscribers are therefore requested to take note that the Commission has approved the partial disconnection of Globacom to MTN. Take note of the operative word. It's a partial disconnection of Globacom to MTN in accordance with Section 100 of the Nigeria Communications Act 2003 and paragraph 9 of the Guidelines on Procedure for Granting Approval to Disconnect Telecommunications Operations 2012. So again, it's a partial disconnection, meaning that inbound calls to Globacom will still go through, but of course, Globacom will not be able to call MTN subscribers. So joining us to have further discussion on this is the National President, National Association of Telecom Operators of Nigeria, Mr. Adeolu Ogunbanjo. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Telecom
subscribers. Thank you for joining us on the morning brief.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure.
I believe a good place to start would be interconnect fees. How critical are these fees to the success, the seamlessness of services, calls through the networks, not just Globacom, MTN, but all the other networks now?
Quite sincerely, interconnect fees are fees charged, when an operator, uses another mobile network operator's network to get to another one. So, and they have this arrangement in between themselves. But unfortunately, a lot of things do happen. Many of them don't honor the payment of this interconnect fees, even when they say, come, whatever that, is what I have made, remove it from what you have made, and then pay me the balance. They don't honor it. It's unfortunate. So it's a fee that is within, the mobile network operators that they charge among themselves, which is also approved by the NCC, by the way. So,
but 6 billion naira is quite an amount. Is there a way that that amount can be a more efficient way that amount can be managed? The payments can be managed such that it doesn't accumulate.
You see, the issue now is this has actually been deducted. I mean, it's been used. The subscribers have paid for this, and I remember in the Anasindukwe days when engineer Dr. Anasindukwe was the EVC and the CEO of NCC. He had a telecoms industry working group of which one Alhaji Bashir Grandu was the chairman. I was a member. It has always been a problem. In fact, they were then owing Nitel, of the old, that started, with that had 500,000 lines at that time. So it has always been a situation where operators do not honor this particular agreement, this interconnect fees. It's an age-long problem. And NCC had always come to say, look, you have to honor these agreements between yourselves. Please do, but they don't.
So I'm curious to know or find out, why don't they honor? Is it that because there are no punitive measures? What exactly is it? Why are they not honoring an agreement? Because you say it's maybe a perennial problem. So what could be responsible for someone or an organization to insist on not honoring a laid down agreement as approved by the regulator?
Thank you. You see, the regulator is always trying to, be cautious, in the sense that he doesn't want to, raise the big hammer all the time. And he wants them, he appeals to them and all that. And not until when, for instance, one operator now complains, to the NCC, look, this is getting too much, maybe for a year, 2, 3, 4. And for what I can remember, it's been on. So this is a serious cankerworm that is bedeviling the telecoms industry.
So I read the statement, and one of the things he said, not sufficient, unjustifiable reason. What excuses, or what are the excuses that Globacom, in your view or in your understanding, that they are giving for not being able to pay the 6 billion naira they are owing MTN? What are they saying? That the NCC is saying, we can't listen to what you're saying, so we have to implement Section 100 of our Act?
Sincerely, I do not understand where Globacom is coming from. These calls have gone through from the Globacom network to MTN. So and subscribers have paid. It's unfortunate that I don't know what reason Glo is trying to give, for not paying.
So 2 issues, really. First, I know a lot of figures have been quoted, but the NCC statement is not specific about the amount. I know there's been certain figures put out there, but 2 things I'd like you to respond to. First is that an unofficial source within the organization has been quoted by some media outlets as saying that Glo isn't owing MTN, and this is an unofficial source. Some media outlets put it out. There's been nothing official yet, really, but perhaps this was gleaned. And I wonder, the big question for a lot of people, particularly subscribers, is that, so what then becomes our fate? So imagine I'm a husband. My wife uses the other network. And I just want to call my wife to check on her, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, or you want to do business and all of that. We know how important communication is. So what will be the fate of subscribers if this eventually sails through? I see we have just a few more days, 8 days to go, I think, going by that countdown, 8, 9 days. So what is our fate? Because, hey, and I imagine you as well, because of course you also head that association. What is our fate?
Honestly, this has been an ongoing thing, and the regulator, like you have rightly pointed out, have been trying to appeal to the mobile network operators to please honor their financial agreements. But unfortunately, a lot of things do happen, and somehow this is not met. Now, coming back to what you have said, sir, it will affect subscribers. Again, it will also affect the mobile network operator, the offender, because which is Glo. Don't forget that there is what we call mobile number portability. People will now, if an ad cannot call, I can go and port my Glo line to another.
But don't forget the other options. There's WhatsApp. There's other means that people actually get to make calls. In fact, some people prefer to do it with those apps than to do normal phone calls.
Yes, sometimes you are forced, because if, for instance, your data is misbehaving and signals are not that strong, you will definitely want to make calls. So it will affect Glo, as well as, it will also affect the subscribers. But this is very unnecessary, only if they honor the agreements between them. So subscribers should please understand that, look, between now and another 5, 6, 7, 10 days, or 9 days or something that is left, I'm sure Glo will do the needful.
Well, while we are hopeful that Globacom will do the needful, this is not the first time, and I hope this is a valid question. This has happened in 2018 as well, when the Communications Commission restricted calls from Glo to MTN. And Globacom is the indigenous telecoms operator in the country. Why is it you're always the one that is fingered in this? There are other telecoms operators who are smaller in category and ranking, to this operator. I wonder if it's a valid question.
Yes, it is. Like you did mention, and it's so painful that this is the wholly indigenized mobile network operator. And why is it that all the time it is always, this is what, from what I can see in the last few years, this is the second time that this has been done. But before the regulator, for instance, before the regulator can actually come in, they must have known that this is happening. So it's not just a situation where, NCC or MTN is saying, sorry, they're not paying them, but this is real. So Glo should also look inwards and start honoring these, agreements, these payment agreements, so that their subscribers are not hurt, are not affected. They should also try and see that this is the only industry, for instance, that is a good example of privatization.
All right.
Unlike, for instance, another problem is the banks, again, that are not paying the mobile network operators. Perhaps, maybe the banks are owing Glo. So perhaps because the banks are now owing Glo, they are now not being able to, pay the MTN.
But you said earlier that these funds have already accrued to the operator from monies paid by subscribers for the services. Yes. So where do the banks come in?
What I'm saying is the same issue about all players not honoring their payments is that the banks are owing close to 200 billion. They are owing the mobile network operators, and they're still not paying. So until the big stick is actually applied by the NCC.
That's where I was coming from, because as a subscriber, it's a bit upsetting that the quote-unquote irresponsibility, maybe that's an extreme word, the inability of these organizations to comply with simple rules and regulation, I would not have to suffer for it. So I can take any of them to court at the end of the day, because if I'm a Glo subscriber or MTN subscriber, I don't want to peg it on Glo or anyone now, because you say it's a common practice within that space. So I can actually, it can be a subject of litigation. So my question is, what will NCC now do going forward, just besides appeals? Because if NCC wields the big stick and ensure this is done and complied with every other thing they are doing, at the end of the day, I don't think this will happen, because you keep saying they're appealing to them, comply and comply. Appeal apparently is not working. So what is NCC thinking of doing, if you answer that question for us?
Well, hopefully Globacom will not allow the day, I think it's is it 19th or something? The moment that happens, then NCC may wield the big stick, if they allow it to expire before payment, because they will still pay anyway, because they have to be in business. And for the sake of their subscribers, they should understand that they are not the only one that, that must honor this interconnect risk payment.
So who bears the cost of losses if this is not resolved and indeed as approved by the NCC, no one can call. I mean, you can only call. MTN can call Glo, but Glo cannot call. Whatever losses is incurred on the other end, who bears it? Because as a subscriber, I've done my part. The regulator is appealing. The people in the players, I don't know how to describe their own game.
The offending operator loses, subscriber loses. Now, unfortunately, for Glo or for Globacom, subscribers with Glo can now, for instance, take Glo to court. Haven't subscribed to their network. They are depriving them of calls to any network of my choice, of their choice. So, for God's sake, Glo should understand that this is a situation they have to remedy. They have to, do that on time.
Just as we wind down, let's just run through what is going to happen if this sails through. You can't make a call to, if you're MTN, you can make a call to Glo. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes, you can make a call to Glo.
If you're Glo, you can't make a call to MTN.
Precisely.
Can you send an SMS to MTN from Glo?
The partial disconnection is what I don't know the coverage.
Okay. Can you use data to make like all those VoIP or WhatsApp calls from Glo to MTN?
That again will determine the extent to which the regulator would, want this partial disconnection to be. So we don't know whether it will affect data from Glo to MTN, or is it just calls? The partial disconnection is what
we don't know.
We don't know yet.
Has this ever been implemented?
Oh, yes.
It has?
It has been.
So what you hear when you make the call is the number you've dialed is not reachable, or switched off?
I don't know, but I know that it may not even go through at all.
Even though you have airtime on your phone?
Yes, and that is the aspect where we're saying, look, if I have subscribed, I have their SIM, I may have to, look at taking Glo to court.
Or NCC?
No, NCC has, directed that this will be paid. So they have regulated.
The NCC is not doing enough to make sure they pay. That's what we're arguing.
NCC
that's always cautious.
Well, shouldn't there be a better way to even pay? Let the money go directly.
Let the money just,
someone holding the money
rather
to
than
now
just
pay. Let my money go directly to MTN. Since I'm the one making the call to MTN, let it be
deducted from source.
MTN.
Yeah, so that the subscribers are not inconvenienced unnecessarily in the future, because it seems as if it's the subscribers that are suffering for the disputes between the two telecom operators.
What I also don't know is whether the money goes to NCC or there is an arrangement between the mobile network operators to pay themselves. So I don't know that bit, but there should be a way they should be paying themselves without subscribers knowing.
Well,
amid this interconnect dispute, there's also the more important concern about how much the NCC is also doing to protect the interest of subscribers, and that's talking about connectivity issues,
data,
calls, data. But we don't have time, to expand the conversation. We'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Adeolu Ogunbanjo. I don't know why I keep saying Ogunbanjo.
You forgot the chief.
Mr. Chief Adeolu Ogunbanjo is the National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMs. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the morning brief.
And I love the look, I must say.
By the way.
Thank you very much.
Maybe you're the man they will come to when it comes to litigation, because you represent the subscribers. So maybe money is about to be made by Nigerians, so everybody should sit up.
All right, so our next question for you is, just how deep has inflation dug into your pocket, and what's your coping mechanism? Stay with us. The morning brief will be right back.
It is no longer news that Nigeria's inflation rate has risen to about 28.9%, the highest since August 2005, occasioned by the consistent increase in the price of food items such as rice, beans, meat, oil, and others. The removal of fuel subsidy by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is also another factor responsible for the surge. The president soon after that floated the naira against other global currencies, causing it to lose some value. Residents here in Asaba, the capital city of Delta State, have been speaking on the impact of these government policies on their day-to-day activities.
Say there is something like a nexus, a meeting point between both of them, because you see the cost of fuel has affected the cost of transporting these goods and services even from the marketplaces. Like for us that we are in the city, they normally have what they call these village market days, and when these villagers wants to get their goods to the market, as a result of the rising cost of fuel prices, it makes them to put the price of the increment on the fare that the drivers place on them to transport those goods. They put them in the food items. And if you look at those that are salary earners, the income is not increasing, but the price of food is increasing by the day. If you go to the markets now, you will see that, for example, something that you bought today at a particular price, tomorrow it will increase. Even at times, if you get this thing maybe early in the morning, during these market days, 2 hours later, that thing that you bought at that amount must have increased, because there are different goods and services that were coming in at different times. So the challenge of this increment in the food, I think the government should look into the rising cost of fuel and try and see how it can be brought down.
The cost of living in Nigeria right now is, especially for the poor, it's not easy, trust me. Like everywhere, difficulty. Like we coming back just now, went to go and buy fuel just now, and trust me, it's very expensive, and so many things in the country is not working.
We just heard the people speaking to us on how they've been coping with the high cost of transportation and food items in the country. Hopefully, the policies being implemented by the government will yield positive results that will turn around the nation's economy for the better. From Asaba, Vivian Oramadike is back to you guys in the studio.
Welcome back. We're glad to have you on the program, and that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as how inflation is affecting the pockets of many Nigerians. Of course, we have our correspondent in some other states who will be bringing us up to speed with residents in their own areas as well, and helping us understand just how they're coping. But as we start off the next leg of our conversation now, we have joining us Mr. Bountiful Atako. Mr. Bountiful Atako is the Managing Director, Alana Green Limited. Bountiful Atako, Managing Director, Alana Green Limited. Thank you for joining us. And he joins us virtually, by the way. We also have joining us Mr. Gospel Obele, Chief Economist, Streetnomics Limited, who also joins us via Zoom. Thank you for joining us on the program. I believe... Yes, thank you for joining us. You might have to unmute yourself so that we can hear you more clearly.
Yes, I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you for joining us.
All right, great.
Well,
thank you for having me.
It would be valid for us to ask you, both gentlemen, first of all, how inflation is also affecting you before we go straight to the conversation. So how are you coping? By how much percentage has inflation affected your income?
Well, it has greatly affected income and also purchasing power and all that. Primarily in the space of having to use more share of income or spend more on food, on basic household supply items, and all of that, even transportation, and also it's expected to a large extent. And it's a global phenomenon because you also have that experience in the UK, in other African nations, and in Nigeria. The context in Nigeria is the fact that it's strongly woven into the day-to-day experience, and it's at a very, very rocket high 28%, and food inflation is at 32%. So it's eating deep into consumer pockets, as well as shaping the day-to-day experiences of Nigerians as they have to spend more of their income, even live on borrowed income, just to get a life and to move from point A to point B. And to a very large extent, for so many persons who are on the lower rung of the income ladder, there's also a challenge where they are stuck trying to get by on a day-to-day basis. As a result, they don't have enough monies or spare monies to fund their dreams, their aspirations, and all that. So it's sort of leading to a situation of a new cycle of poverty trap, because people are in a fix trying to just live, breathe, and survive every day, and it's leading to newer ways of agitation, pain, and all that. So it's really a bad situation right now for most Nigerians. For some, they've had to find creative ways to make extra income and then keep their heads above the waters and the likes. But it's a very bad situation as it stands.
Indeed, it's as bad as you describe it. I mean, there was a report that talked about how Nigerians are now borrowing, from those loan apps to meet day-to-day income, day-to-day needs, not necessarily for capital expenditure. And that just reflects how bad the situation has become. But for you, Mr. Obele, as well, I'd like you to also respond to the same question.
Well, this is Gospel Obele.
Okay, Mr. Tako, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so for me, I'm a normal Nigerian as well. I buy food items from the market. As a matter of fact, within the festivities, I escorted my wife to the market, and I could find food prices being crazily off the roof. A small pail of tomato was going for 600 naira. That used to be half the price of a basket of tomato sometime about early last year, or the end of 2022. Cooking gas is also crazily expensive. It's about 1,000 naira per kg, and it just tells me that the inflation is doing a lot of horror, to households in Nigeria. As a farmer and as a business, Alana Green encountered a lot of difficulties with the inflation during the December periods as we were trying to procure paddy rice. We found that prices were skyrocketing, jumping from 360,000 naira per ton to 370 to 390, and then up to 410. So the inflation is pushing companies off their budgets, and we cannot really make predictions based on what it should be. The inflation poses a serious challenge for Nigerian businesses. We need to find a way to look at what we can do to curb the inflation. And some of the solutions that I can recommend is all year round production, which the government is trying at that end. My commendations to the Minister of Agriculture for starting the wheat dry season farming. We need to look at that. We need to go full scale mechanized as farmers in Nigeria. We need to hasten up whatever agreement we have with John Deere so that they can kick off their plants here, and then we can push that side on mechanization. And we need to better prepare for the upcoming wet season farming, because if we don't plan well, then we plan to fail. Pretty much that's how far I can say about inflation for now. Not to forget, the numbers are spiraling again. Headline inflation is at 28.2%. Sometime in November, I was on channels to speak on inflation. It was 27.6, and then it's 28.2 as of today. Food inflation is 32.8%. So we really need to look at it as a nation. We find that a lot of investment banks, global investment banks like JP Morgan, are optimistic, but we find that there are divergent views to what the 2024 outlook is as per the naira, the inflation, the currency devaluation, and around these issues.
Any of you can jump in on this particular one between Mr. Obela and Mr. Atako. Are you seeing the government of Nigeria doing enough to see how this can taper down at the end of this? Because we've seen inflation numbers, as you said, headline inflation hitting 28.2, and the economists are saying perhaps it's going to come up higher by the time we hear the numbers this January. MPC expected to meet again, perhaps maybe marginally increase the interest rates. Let's see how that plays out, but nobody really knows how this thing plays out. But the people in the know see that the numbers will increase somehow, whether marginally or significantly. So for both of you, any of you can jump in on this. Is there anything you're seeing that the government is doing to see how this can be reversed as soon as possible? The expectation is that by the end of December, by assumption, 21-point-something% is where inflation should be. Is that even possible?
Okay, so those of us who know me on TV will know that I'm a serious critic of the government. But I must tell you, it'll be unfair to say the government is not putting in effort. Are they doing enough? I do not think so. But the government, remember, it's pretty much a new government, and they've taken steps or measures to show that they are serious about the things that they say. So, like I said, they flagged off the dry season wheat production. There's also a program called Agro Pocket and all. So they are indeed trying. Governments are sitting up. But I like to say we need to look at a more across-border approach. We need to stop holding just the federal government responsible. Citizens need to call on their state government. For example, I'll take a cue from your first view before our segment started, from Asaba, the interview you had in Asaba. Delta is a state that has vast land that should be able to produce a lot of stuff. Alana Green is trying to do some work in Delta states in partnership with PIND, that's the Partnership Initiative for the Niger Delta, to see how we can produce rice in that region, because there are a lot of rice belts in that place. So why is the Delta State government, for example, not creating a rice basin or an agro basin for production? So state governments need to become more responsible, need to involve their people in agriculture. We found that agriculture is the bedrock of the economy. No country can thrive without being food secure. And then governments in their own bid need to put in more effort into fighting insecurity, because insecurity jeopardizes agriculture, by 100%. Investors will not bring in funds, that's one. Farmers will not go into the fields, and then the food production will be insufficient. And when it's insufficient, when it's controlled by the few people, they're going to push food prices high. So if we don't do the right thing as a nation, if we're not serious to look at our challenges, we're not going to get it right. And if we don't get it right, we'll be all the ones to blame. I would like to also say that Nigeria faces looming food scarcity in 2024. So whatever government is doing, we need to sit up as a nation and take the bull by the horn to drive our production. Pretty much I'll leave it at that.
I'm sure Obele is itching to respond. Obele, give us your perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. As an economist, basically, I realized that the approach to inflation in Nigeria, in fact, globally, have been very conventional. But the inflation we are dealing with right now today is largely unconventional, because it's driven by to very large extent, non-monetary factors. You have the impact of the rise in global commodity prices, informed by the Russian-Ukraine war and climate change and all of these growing geopolitical dynamics. And that's also impacting deeply on the Nigerian economy, which is very import dependent and very lacks that productive, ecosystem locally. So there's a part where inflation is being imported. There's also a part where inflation is also being informed by the quality of the currency. That's the value of the naira, the exchange rate dynamics, and all that. So when you have all this, coupled with the fact that in May, the president at the inauguration tried to take up full subsidy and unify the exchange market at the same time. That double policy stance was very counterproductive, in my opinion. It was good, but it was very counterproductive in how it was executed. And that's because you cannot unify the exchange market the way it is right now. That's number one. Two, subsidy needs more like a phased out plan to sort of exit that program in the Nigerian economy. So what you have is that rush to execute on those two legs of policy sort of, bounced back, in terms of the Nigerian economy, in form of inflation and all the dynamics that you have. So it's important that going forward to dealing with inflation, there has to be a more sustainable approach beyond just interest rates. As much as interest rates are critical, beyond just interest rates, looking at the core ecosystem around inflation in Nigeria, like Bountiful Nation, and as well as partnering with the fiscal authorities to ensure that sound policies that are in line with monetary engagements can help to sort of reduce the impact of inflation on the average Nigeria and across the value chain of the agricultural sector.
Gentlemen, the purpose of this conversation is also to equip Nigerians with life skills. Would I say to survive or to just find their way around this, because this is affecting everyone. So let's go back to the streets and just hear from Nigerians how this is affecting them and maybe how they're trying to cope. And then we'll come back to have more of this conversation. So let's head over to Bauchi State now, where our correspondent Hajara Aliyu has been speaking with some people. Hajara, to you now.
The state of the economy is a conversation that is on the lips of almost every Nigerian. Here in Bauchi is no different. Let's find out how residents of Bauchi are coping through the financial hurdles. I'm here with 3 gentlemen. 2 are lecturers and 1 is a journalist, just like me. Let me begin with Mr. Nazif. As a lecturer, is your salary able to meet your demands at the end of the month?
Not really, not at all. Let me be specific, because the situation is pathetic. You and me know the situation we're in this country because of the rising, cost of living. Things are very high. Something that you buy for 100 naira today or yesterday, today is 300 or 400. So the situation, it's very high. People are dying of hunger. So the people had to, diversify look for another options for them to be able to survive. Someone like me as a lecturer, I had to diversify to lecture in about 2 or 3, schools for me to be able to make, more monies for me to be able to provide to the needs of my family. So the situation and the issue of cutting costs is very important for someone to become a realist, so that he or she will be able to survive. So we always consider this issue of scalar preference, whereby you take the most important issue and attend to, and others that are not more important, you don't have to bother yourself.
Okay, let me ask you this: in what area, to be specific, what area are you mostly concerned about? Is it food, transportation? What exactly?
All. But the food, the fuel, and everything, it's very high. Let me give you a simple example. Before this issue of rising of in inflation, I used to fill my tank in my car with 15,000 naira. But nowadays it's 45,000 naira. So you see, it makes me, to buy a motorcycle so that I'll be able to survive, because I had to take my kids to the school every day. So it cannot be able to contain my movement. So I had to look for a motorcycle so that I'll be able to survive. So this is the situation I'm in now.
Okay, speaking about motorcycle, I saw you on one earlier, and I know you have a car. So how did we get here?
I am forced to put my car aside because of the economic situation in the country. From top to bottom, everybody is feeling it. Way and manner, price of services, price of commodities are skyrocketing in the country. Call for, adoption of what economists call scale of preference, whereby you just choose the most important things and forget those who are less important. So it is because of this that we cut, cost of living by slashing some of, the things we do. Like you said, of course, I have a car, and if you know me all through, I go with car in Bauchi. But because of the situation now, the inflation, the removal of fuel subsidy that led to the high increment of, price of fuel. So I am forced to now buy a Boxer. And you can see the reason why I even decided to buy a Boxer, not a ladies or any other motorcycle, because of, the fuel economy of Boxer motorcycles. So now Nigerians are cutting cost of living because of the economic situation. What we used to spend before, we just have to cut it because of the rising inflation. Initially, I used to fill my tank, and it will take me 2 weeks, going around my place of work and other places I used to go. But now with 50,000 fuel, I cannot do that. And you can see that I cannot survive with a lecturer salary, and then with some, little amount that used to come to me from other, ventures.
What is the size of your family?
I am a father of 3 with a wife, though intending to go for more. But you can see that even my intention to go polygamous is now under reconsideration because of the economic situation. So really, we cut a lot of things so that we can survive through this very, very harsh economy.
Mr. Winty, he's the journalist amongst us. He's just like me here. How is this economic situation impacting on you and your family?
While, as you know, a journalist is the one that are mostly affected by this very ugly trend of rising inflation. Because if you look at the tasky nature of our responsibility, coupled with our struggle to meet the demands of our family needs, honestly, one cannot survive in this a very ugly trend unless if one diversify his means. And that is why, as journalists, we are agitating for the actualization of media salary scale to enable us meet the tasky nature of our responsibility and that of our family.
So there you go, those gentlemen talking about how they've been able to scale down. I saw Bountiful chuckling at some point. I'll come back to you guys, but let us know what you think about this hashtag CTV morning brief. Bountiful, I know the part where you were chuckling, where the gentleman said, well, the economy has stopped his polygamous plans. I saw you were chuckling there. You know, and I imagine a lot of women are probably happy about that, but we're not getting into that this morning. If you were to add just one coping skill to some of the lists that they have mentioned. Someone is lecturing in 3 universities, no more riding vehicles, they are now jumping motorcycles, basically to survive. If you were to add one for you and Gospel, what will that one thing be for Nigerians to be able to cope during these times? I'll begin with you, Bountiful, and I'll go to Gospel.
So if you know what we do at Alana Green Limited, you'd be aware that our advocacy is for people to come into farming and farming as a business. I encourage people who can, whether you live in urban cities or you live in rural communities, do some bit of farming. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you rear a goat or you grow tomato behind your house or pumpkin leaf or vegetables, water leaf, or chicken for your consumption. Do some farming. Now, there is nothing else that I can advise people than to farm, because farming does a lot, right, to help to ease the pressure that inflation puts on household. You find that the conventional things that you go to the market, so you might consider it as you're just going to buy tomato in the market. Hypothetically speaking, the 600 naira tomato I gave an example about. But how about your cost of transportation to and fro the market?
So we should all find a way to farm.
You get to the market again, unnecessary.
Bountiful. Sorry? So we should all find a way to farm, whether on your balcony, at the back of your house, but just try to grow something or rear something. Fantastic point. Gospel.
Something.
What would you want to add to that list?
Well, for me, it will be very simple. Nigerians need to rethink their income streams, and as much as possible, try to play in sectors that are inflation-proof. And it technically means just upskilling yourself slightly more. And if you need to shift markets, where you can deploy those skills, please do. If you need to get on remote jobs where you can deploy those skills, please do. If you want to go more services driven, please do. There are markets globally that you can sort of get jobs or gigs to do remotely, and they'll pay you more value for that. And the Nigerians also need to probably think, for those who are learned and have access to internet enough, need to think of exchanging value in foreign currencies. You know, you can get paid dollars sitting at home in Nigeria doing graphics design jobs for companies or startups in Dubai. These opportunities are there, all right? So it's important to diversify income as much as, and also diversify towards areas that are inflationary proof. For people who run food businesses, for instance, especially people who make bowls of soups and all that, one of my encouragement would be, because they cannot beat the inflation dynamics, would be to rethink their business models. How can you move from making bowls of soups to become an advocacy for food security in Nigeria, using data and information to sort of drive access to market solution? That would position your business, to become more social enterprise driven in terms of modeling right now, and you can sort of access grants and access free monies available to do great work supporting the ecosystem beyond producing a bowl of soup. So these are my ideas to Nigerians to sort of rethink what they're currently doing, rethink their state of play in sectors that are inflationary proof, and then upskill further upwards on the value chain, as it were. The inflationary dynamics has come to stay. I mean, sorry to say that it's not going down anytime soon. Even if it goes down, to be honest, it's going to be a managed inflation. But even if inflation goes down, the cost of living crisis has come to stay, because the cost of bread would not also go down anytime soon.
Yeah, timeless and priceless counsel that you have given Nigerians there. Rethink business models, invest in, I don't know how proper that is, but invest in other currencies and all of that. And of course, plan something. We'd like to thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program. Mr. Bountiful Atako, the Managing Director, Alana Green Limited, who joined us from our Abuja studio. And also Mr. Gospel Obele, Chief Economist and Streetnomics Limited.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to see you again. Thank you, Kayode. Thank you, everyone. Yeah,
you forgot to add, rethink your polygamy plans.
When Atako was talking, I was thinking, not everyone lives in places where they can plant anything,
You can plant on your balcony, really.
Balcony?
Just in front of your house. You can
for those who don't have balcony.
Little buckets. There are different ways you can actually plant.
Okay, let's see how that plays out eventually.
It looks like you have to bend over backwards if you don't have small portions of earth around your residence, but just do anything that you can.
So maybe you need to buy a bucket, put some soil.
There are different ways, innovative ways to do things.
But confer with your landlord, by the way, if the property is not yours, because
if you're a
that was not the idea actually when you were given that property. So be very clear. Be very clear. The landlord is comfortable.
It's just like your flower pots. Think of it that way. Just like flower pots.
How much? Okay, I don't want to be pessimistic, but how much will that go to save you some extra cash? Planting just inside
if you plant pepper, if you plant tomato, and all of these small things, that 200 of agbado.
Let us know what you think.
But just be creative, and of course, let us know what you think. Post, hashtag Morning Brief on X. Would like to read your comments.
Morning Brief. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief. Quite important. So we love you to be part of the conversation. So tweets or X. Sometimes I get confused which to use. CTV Morning Brief, because we like to read your comments and we know your thoughts on the program. Bukola?
Indeed. So we've gone from Delta to Bauchi. Now we're coming home. We want to hear more from Nigerians on how they're coping, particularly with transportation. So let's take this and we'll be right back.
Things in the country is now is like who? In short, let's say even the people that does not even have self-man are finding it very, very tough and very, very difficult to get 2 square meal in a day. Going out is a problem. One that can easily okay, fine, let me just rush down to Lagos and pick up 1 or 2 things so that I can run out a business. But now people are not really doing it that much.
We that we are union, we don't even realize money like before, because specifically about fuel, things is not moving fine for everybody. It's very, very hard nowadays.
Welcome back to the show. Still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. We call it the perfect start to your morning. Let's take a look at some of the things you've been telling us about the conversation. Yes, you are part of the conversation as well. And I know we started with the federal government's plan to slash travels, the delegates on travel lists by 60%. A lot of Nigerians have been speaking to this one. I saw this particular one from Gaddafi Mahuta saying, I feel strongly that the federal government may comply with the new regulation of the number of officials during official trips for now. However, that may not stand if media and other stakeholders don't keep the government on its toes. That's what we're going to do. Absolutely, yes. From Gaddafi Mahuta. We'll do that. As citizens as well, make sure that you keep your eyes on government at various levels. Don't forget, they're local government chairmen that are very close to you, councillors. What do they do with the monies? They have their own travel list as well, don't forget. So yes, we'll keep an eye on this one.
And this one is coming from Sir Cosmas, Mr. C, and he says, on the cut of travels by the presidency and others, this needs to be seen as same was said during Buhari's regime. There is a great trust deficit between those in government and Nigerians, hoping this trickles down to state governments too. Thank you for your tweet, Sir Cosmas.
All right, this is coming from Dakpo Banjo, says, on the Rivers issue based on Abuja agreement signed by Sim Fubara KSC, he needs to represent the 2024 budget. Agreement is agreements.
Okay, it reminds me of that song.
Yes, agreement is agreement. You know, Rivers governors and their different song. When it was Governor Nyesom Wike, things like agreement is agreement. It was quite popular. But right now, there's a new song, Day Your Day, Make I Day My Day. Nobody worry nobody.
Interesting.
Okay, that's
like a playlist for Rivers
So it's like every governor has his own playlist. So Day Your Day, Make I Day My Day.
Okay.
So
let's switch gears now, shall we?
Yes.
That big conversation, it's been trending across platforms, X, online, offline. Mummyzee, Debbie, those are the buzzwords or the hashtags that have been trending for a couple of days. But let's take a look at what people have been saying about this. Then we'll get into the conversation proper as some sort of background. So it started with a tweet from Mummyzee, Debbie, about how she wakes up really early to cook for her husband, and then a lot of things have happened since then, goodwill from a lot of Nigerians. But then the debate about it is what we're looking into this morning. There's this particular tweet.
No, he didn't even give a... There's an aspect you missed out, which was the fact that the reason why she started waking up was because her husband came one day and said his colleague, maybe a female colleague, brings an extra spoon for him to join her in eating. When she heard that, she had to say, okay, we have to wake up as early as possible so that from eating with colleague, it doesn't go beyond that to something else.
The handshake does not go beyond the elbow.
Right.
So let me read some of the comments, that actually elicited conversation from Nigerians across the globe. Some of the reactions to Mummyzee's post. This is from Uju Aya. She says, Madam, you went on the internet to say you'll start waking up at 4 a.m. to cook lunch for your husband because you fear long throats will drive him from begging. Well, and this one also says, husband, the Agbaya, is with a woman and you think she has an idea how to care for a man. What drove her to be with a woman if it wasn't to be with a like-minded person? So quite a number of comments there. We have joining us to provide clarity to these issues, particularly to these extreme views, those who are on the feminist side and the others who are actually supporting Mummyzee's disposition towards her family life. We have joining us Solomon Buchi, is a social commentator and writer. And also we have joining us, Mr. Buchi joins us from the United Kingdom. We also have joining us on the program Fola Folayan, who is a journalist and media entrepreneur. Fola, thank you for joining us. They both join us virtually.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so ladies first, right? I'm going to start with you, Fola, for obvious reasons. I'm sure you followed the conversation. So what resonated with you the most? Now, particularly with those who supported Mummyzee's post.
To be honest, when I saw the post and the extreme views, I was not particularly surprised because that's how conversations like this tend to go on social media. We tend to treat it as if it's an either or situation, but it's not exactly black and white. For the people who think, oh, she shouldn't have been doing that, domestic labor, that, we have to understand that this is a woman in her husband's, in her marriage, a very young marriage, to be clear. And for whatever reason, she feels like this is the best way to handle her, her situation. But when I saw the response, especially when Nigerians started to contribute for her, I was happy for her. I mean, it also points out something to me, that a lot of the issues that we tend to debate about, especially the ones that we call either feminist problems or patriarchy problems, they're just poverty problems, to be honest. The reason is because I think it was yesterday morning or so, I saw a tweet from the same lady where she said now she can sleep for as long as she wants because she now has a fridge and a microwave. That has solved the problem of waking up extra early. And, to be sincere, if you look at it on the surface, you might want to say, why should a pregnant woman be waking up at 4:30 to make lunch, or why should she have to be worried, about her husband eating from somewhere else because she couldn't make lunch? But the issues are not black and white. There are nuances to this issue.
All right. Let's head to Buchi. I want to read a tweet, which is where I want you to take it from in terms of your perspective. It says, this from Fabmon NG says, here's my take. Food should be made out of love, concern, and care, not as a strategy to keep a man. Because honestly, a woman can't keep a woman can keep a man who doesn't want to be kept. Men, I believe, irrespective of how much you feed them, know where their heart lies. Again, if the food is a strategy, how many more scenarios will she need to mark or protect territory? It will get exhausting, and that's why partners need to be disciplined. And on the part of the man, maintain that boundary. I'm sure you heard what I read, Buchi. What's your response?
Yeah, I did. So basically, I think that in marriage, acts of service is something that has to be there, right? And a lot of times people tend to judge acts of service based on their preconceived notions. So it's very possible that Mummyzee only wanted to cover up that space, right? I made a tweet a couple days ago and I said, nobody should be sweeter to your spouse more than you, right? So I think she saw that as an opportunity to want to serve her husband. So she's asking herself, if I can cook for my husband in the morning, if it's something that's very possible, why should I leave it to a stranger to actually cook for him? And one of the the initial attacks that they actually got was actually from people who profess to be feminists. They said, oh, he's broke, oh, he's a wicked guy, or all the work he's working, why has he not been able to get her refrigerator? And I don't think that we're trying to get to the same place. At the end of the day, it was the men who were actually termed as misogynistic that actually rallied around, or that started, the flurry of giftings and the naira rain on them. It was actually the men that started it. The feminists kept on criticizing. I understand being oppressed. I understand, the conversation of women wanting better, in the society. But I think that being hypercritical can put you in a place where you begin to see everything through the lens of oppression.
Fola, your last words.
Yeah, my last word is that at the end of the day, we should be very careful about making blanket statements and blanket judgments, especially when we look at, the extremities and we generalize them, say, oh, because there are extreme people on the internet, then that means that his entire principle or this ideology is wrong. Feminism is not the problem here. Extremists are the problem. I mean, there are tons of feminists on social media who are not necessarily subscribed to these extreme ideologies that you see. And a lot of times you you have to look at individual cases and individual people and individual situation before you can say, oh, this is what works and this doesn't work. Finally, I'm happy for Mummyzee, but I think that as people, we should not generalize. This should not be an indictment on feminists all over the world or in Nigeria. We should be able to say, oh, certain people on the internet have extreme views, and this doesn't necessarily represent feminism or feminists.
Well, a fine place to leave it, and of course, deep cause for reflection there. We'd like to thank you very much. Of course, we could have gone on and on with the gifts, but we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much, Fola Folayan, journalist and media entrepreneur who joined us from Rwanda, and Solomon Buchi, a social commentator and writer who joined us from the United Kingdom. And that's the show for today, guys.
Oh,
what a ride.
I'm just curious, really. So is the solution some are preferring is that the husband cooks for himself before he goes to work? Is that what people are preferring? Will that have solved the situation for some of the people who held that extreme view? But hey, let us know what you think. #CTV Morning Brief.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, society, because women are seen as vulnerable. So some of these ladies, the extremes that she referred to they are combat ready all the time, to attack and all of that. We understand that position because if you know what women go through, you can also understand why some of these extremists, as Fola said, are very combat ready. But we will find a balance eventually. Maybe the question we missed to ask is what is feminism, so that we can lay that foundation. But that's another.
Define it.
Once and for all.
That's another debate for another day. But for me, I am actually very, very happy and excited about the goodwill that came the way of Mummyzee, because it is an endorsement of family life and family values. And that's what we need to have a stable society. I want to thank you very much for being a part of the program today. Join us again same time tomorrow when we bring you another superb edition. I am Bukola Koka.
I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
Well, we're going through your zits right now on X. Thank you so much for being a part of that. Let's keep the conversation ongoing on X, #CTV Morning Brief. Till we'll see you next time. Goodbye. Sunrise Daily comes up right after this. Stay with us.